Hi, my name is Michael Friedlander, and welcome to The Gift Tree. As I hope you'll know by now, The Gift Tree is a storytelling program in which we tell stories that bear gifts that we hope will make a difference for the better in the lives of those we touch. The story I'd like to share with you today is a story that really gave rise to our program in some respects. It's a story that I've called The Gift of a Gift. And as with all my stories, it needs a little context. The story took place in 1982 or 1983. I had been in Los Angeles for 2 years working with a fancy law firm. Prior to that, I'd lived and worked and studied in Johannesburg, London, Paris, Zurich, Montreal, and landed up in Los Angeles. And after 2 years in that law firm, I decided to leap out on my own and create my own new international business law practice. And there was a guy working with me at that firm that I thought would make a terrific partner. He was American, educated at Princeton, worked for a fancy Wall Street law firm, spoke fluent Mandarin, fluent French, had worked overseas. And I figured that me with my fluent English, my dazzling good looks and personality, we'd make a great team. I would offer the good looks and personality, he'd offer the smarts, and we would launch this wonderfully successful business law practice. I can't believe how naive I was at the time, but it went unrealistic. But anyway, it actually didn't work out too badly. So before we launched the practice, we decided to go on a worldwide tour where we would reconnect with many of the people that we'd done business before overseas and tell them that we had arrived, that we would be able to offer them our legal services, and they should be delighted at that prospect. But before we did that, I received a call from a fancy New York lawyer who was the senior partner of an international business law practice. And he said to me he'd heard about what we were planning to do, and he'd very much like to meet with us. And if we came to New York to meet with him prior to going on this trip, he would offer us the best advice that we would ever receive, ever, in our entire lives. Anyway, I smiled as I heard this because I realized that hyperbole was alive and well and living, not only in Los Angeles, but also in New York. And of course, we jumped at the opportunity of meeting with this guy. And that, dear folks, is where the story begins. And remember, it's called The Gift of a Gift. So we arrive at his offices a little early, and we're told by the receptionist that he's going to be a little late. And I sank into this luxurious leather chair and began to fantasize. I began to fantasize about an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous personal assistant that the great man had that would soon be coming out, introducing herself to us. And as she led us into his office, which would take all of 10 or 15 seconds, we'd fall desperately in love, we'd land up getting married, and live on the Caribbean island of St. Barths. Did I mention that she was also a trust child baby who was enormously wealthy? Anyway, my fantasy was shattered when the good man came in and introduced himself, and much to my surprise and discomfort, I might say, gave me this enormous bear hug. It made me uncomfortable because in South Africa, we don't generally hug people of the same gender when we've just met him, or maybe even afterwards. But anyway, he was very, very nice and very warm and effusive and treated us like his long-lost buddies. So we go into his office, he gives us coffee, and he proceeds to start out on this advice that he had promised us. He begins by saying, you know, you should know, and you probably do already, but let me just say it again, is that people like doing business and like being with people they like. And there was this kind of pregnant pause. It was almost like an applause line. I think he was expecting us to stand up and cheer, which we didn't do. And he smiled graciously. And he said, no, that's not the advice I was going to give you, although it is related to that advice. Here's the advice. Whenever you go and meet somebody, or talk to them, or whatever, somebody who you think you may need in the future, or who you think may be able to help you in the future, always take a gift with you. Now, People have told me I should never play poker because the expression on my face betrays what I'm thinking. And what I was thinking at that time is that this guy's totally nuts. I mean, we were struggling just to put together enough money to finance this overseas trip. The idea of us traveling the world with bags of goodies slung over our shoulders was just not doable. It couldn't happen. Anyway, he looked at the expression on my face and burst out laughing, and he said, "No, Michael, you don't get it. I'm not talking about a gift that you can wrap or put a ribbon around. I'm talking about something that's an interesting story, an anecdote, a latest development in the law or business, a political thought. But above everything else, it must be interesting enough that he will want to share it with friends, families, colleagues, clients, customers, and even strangers. Because it's all about sharing. It's got to be interesting enough for him to want to share. And not only do you have to be interesting, but you have to be interested. Because people like being with people they like who are interested in them. So you've got to be interesting and interested. And you know what's going to happen? If you are, the next time you call them, they'll take your call. And the next time you want to set up a meeting, they'll take the meeting. Why? Because they want another gift. And I thought, wow, that really is kind of quite profound. And as I was thinking back on this, well, firstly, before I thought back on it, I was thinking that this advice is the very essence of networking, both in a business context and in a social context. But looking back on it many years later, remember, at the time he gave us this advice, the internet was just getting going, and social media, as we now know it, wasn't really getting off the ground yet. But social media turned out to be based on this whole concept of sharing. So this guy, years before the internet really took flight, he anticipated the very foundation upon which it was built, which I thought was kind of stunning in many respects. So that was the advice that he gave us. And I sort of laughed because he had really practiced what he preached on us. He had given us a gift. And if ever we needed work in New York, we would certainly have contacted him. And if he ever called, I would certainly take his call, no question about it. So when all was said and done, it really was great advice. And it was advice that transcended the world of business and flowed into the world of personal relationships. Try dating somebody without letting them know that you're interesting and interested in them. Nothing is going to happen unless you can do that. And it applies to absolutely everything. So I thought, what terrific advice. And it's advice that certainly stood me in good stead over many years, and one that I hope you'll find useful too. So I hope you've enjoyed this and look forward to sharing another story with you soon.